John from Complete Technology Solutions, your friend in the computer business, coming to you today with a brand new project. Hey folks, John again. So today we're going to be doing part 2, our second episode, the one that's going to be something that I get a lot of requests about. People are always asking me, I want to build my own computer. I want to build my first computer. I just don't know how to do it. I don't know where to start. I don't know the do's and don'ts. Can you just do something like that? So today's episode is going to be probably oversimplified for a lot of you folks, but I want to make it easy for the layman to buy the components necessary and to build their very first computer on their own. It's a pretty cool experience. I'm sure a lot of you remember. So today's computer we're going to be building is actually designed more for office use than heavy gaming, although it does have some gaming qualities to it. You'll see as we're going along. There's one heavy aspect of it that it will not have that you need for gaming, that you don't need for office, but a lot of you have probably already guessed what that is, but you'll see as we go. So, all right. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to start with the heart of this beast. Now, on this one in particular, we're going to build this with a Ryzen 5. Now, this is a Ryzen 5 2400G. It's a quad-core processor, which ought to be plenty powerful for your average office use. And it's 3.6 gigahertz, so we're not going to be doing any overclocking on this, so this should be fine for what we're using. Now, you'll excuse me, folks, I am running dual cameras here, so you've got the one on the front and the one on the side. So I am going to try to show things to the side as we go along so people get an idea of what we're talking about. So first we're going to have our processor. Then in order to put it into the case, we're going to have a motherboard. Now, this motherboard is the Gigabyte B450M. Now, this has actually become one of my favorite micro ATX motherboards. They're easy to work with and they're very reliable. I've only seen a couple of minor problems over the time these have been out, but they're very solid. And for an office, obviously, you don't want the system crashing on you all the time. You don't want to have to go back and constantly fix it. You just want it to work. Not to mention the fact that it fits into one of my favorite small cases, which you're going to get a kick out of here shortly as we go along. So we're going to be using the B450M on this. Now, I will tell you, one thing that this motherboard does not have is built-in Wi-Fi. I'm going to just use a little add-on Wi-Fi card just so that we can get the updates done and everything else once Windows 10 is loaded. So, but that's the only thing this one lacks. Everything else, it'll do exactly what we need for it. So this is our motherboard. We're also going to, of course, need some RAM. So in this particular case, we're going to be using Ballistics 8 gigabyte times 2. So we're going to go 16 gigabytes of RAM. This may be a little bit overkill for an office use, but you can never have too much RAM. It's one of those things that if you have it and don't need it, you're a lot better off than if you need it and don't have it. So we're going with 16 gigabytes of RAM in this system. Now, this is not 100% necessary, but I'm a big believer in keeping your entire operating system, the basic operating system alone, on a solid-state drive. Now, this drive does not need to be huge. I was actually going to go with an NVMe drive on this one. For those of you who don't know, we'll be doing a totally new video at some point in the future with designations on these drives and what they do. I decided against that because I wanted him to be able to, number one, recognize the components that were in it, and number two, be able to swap it a little bit easier. The NVMe's, you know how it is. One little mistake, you can have a problem with it. So, in this particular case, the primary hard drive is just a small 120 gig SSD drive. Now this will be more than enough for what he's doing for just the basic operating system. It's going to run Windows 10, probably Office, QuickBooks, that kind of thing. So this will be just fine. Now, for the primary storage drive, on the other hand, for that one I picked the Seagate 4 terabyte. Now once again, 4 terabytes is probably gross overkill for an office computer. But in this particular case, there's no such thing as too much. I mean, once again, it's always better to have more than you need. So in this case, we're going to go with the 4 terabyte drive with the 120 gigabyte primary SSD drive. So this thing ought to boot very, very quick, and you'd have tons of storage for it in the future. And the case we've chosen, one of my favorites, is the Thermaltake Core V21. Now, this looks a lot bigger on the camera than it actually is. This is a very cool little cube case. One thing that I very much like about this is the way the cooling works on it. It's got a fantastic fan on the front. It's about that big. This thing is huge, and it pulls a great deal of air through it and keeps the whole system nice and cool. Add to the fact that you can see into it, and that just adds a little added aspect of being cool. So this is the equipment that we're going to be working with. Now, of course, also when you're building it, you're going to need to get yourself a good set of tools. You don't have to have any high dollar stuff. In fact, most of this can be done with a Phillips screwdriver. I do like to have a good toolkit handy because you never know what tool you might need as you're going along, and you certainly don't want them stripping or breaking or anything else along the way. So get yourself a good set of tools for this. You're also going to need your copy of Windows. Now in this particular case, he's actually upgrading an existing client of his. He's going to be formatting the old hard drive and donating it to charity. So we're going to be using his existing Windows key on the new computer, since it is still installed on only one client, and going forward with that. So you will need that as well. All right, we'll be right back with you, and we'll go ahead and get this build started. Okay, folks, back with you. So there are a lot of different ways you can go about this, different ways you can assemble things for timing's sake, or to make it a little easier, just to kind of remember what order you're in. So that's all sort of interpretational, but we're going to do this in the order that I typically do it, just to kind of keep things nice and clean. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to start with the motherboard. Okay? Take a look at the motherboard here. You see in the case you've got your serial ATA cables, just a couple of them there. And you've got your primary motherboard. And you've got your I/O shield. Now, for those who do not know, this I/O shield, this is actually the shield that goes on the back of whatever case you decide to use that adapts it to the outgoing ports on the motherboard. So definitely don't trash your box and forget to get that out, or you'll be digging your box back out of the trash, I promise you. All right. Now, these are the driver disks and software. Now, typically, guys, most of us know we're probably going to be getting more updated drivers on the internet than you're going to use here. So most of the time, for me personally, this ends up in the trash. However, when you're building it for a client, I typically leave all of the documentation inside the static bag that the motherboard was in. That's a good touch for them. That way they have, all this old software if they ever need to refer back to it. So. Besides, for warranty repair, it comes in real handy knowing what your motherboard was. So, yeah. Now, I am working on an anti-static mat here that is grounded. I'm also grounded back here by my ankle. You can't see it. It looks kind of like I'm in prison back here. It's pretty cool. Now, what I typically do, and once again, this is a real point of contention, depends on who you ask. You can set the equipment directly on this to work on it. It is anti-static, or you can set it on the bag. Typically, I'd set it on the bag if I didn't already have the mat, but since I do, we're going to go with the mat. Now, I'll give you a little up-close view of the motherboard here. Now, the cool thing about this motherboard, the reason I selected this for the office, he is not going to have a dedicated video card. And since we know that the Ryzen 5 has got dedicated Vega graphics built onto it, we can use the external ports. He wants to use 2 monitors. And since this does supply both an HDMI out and a DVI out, he can have one on each input, and it will work just fine for an extended desktop or a clone of the desktop or whatever he wants to do. This also does add 4 RAM expansion slots. Now, once again, tip for the beginners. And I'm going to go to the close cam here. You'll notice that you've got 2 different colors on your RAM slots. That's because it's the way the channels are set up. So if you've got 2 sticks of RAM, you want them in the same 2 colors. So 1 and 3 are black, and 2 and 4 are gray. So you want to make sure that you have them in the channel that they're in. So if you've got 2 sticks of RAM, you want them both in black. So we'll take care of that one in just a second. Now, we're going to go ahead and crack our processor open here. We'll go to some old school tech for that. Now, this particular processor does come with its own cooling fan. This processor does not run particularly hot, so the stock cooling fan is fine for standard application. If you were going to do anything as far as gaming, I highly suggest going ahead and upgrading that, or even perhaps putting on a liquid cooling system, which, by the way, you can do in this other case. So we'll get to that at some point in the future. So, all right. Now, in the processor box, give you a little close-up of it. Here's your processor and a little sticker. Now, I'm not cheesy. I usually put the sticker in the static bag with all the other documentation. If the client wants to do it, throw the sticker on there. That's fine. So, all right. We're going to go ahead and we're going to open up the little swing arm on the motherboard. Now, that is going to release the pins so that you can get them down into the socket. Now, the socket, you can only insert the processor one direction. So you don't have to worry about doing that wrong. It's real easy to tell if you look at it. There are notches on the bottom of the socket where the pins are. I don't know if this is going to pick it up, and you'll see a little arrow there. See that? And that, if you'll notice, is notched inward. These are all flat across, flat across, flat across. That's got a little inward notch. Well, on the motherboard, you can see that it also has the same notch down in the corner. So you very gently want to take the processor and put it straight down on the slot. And as you see, it just fell right into place. That's right where it needs to be. Make sure it's nice and snug. Lock down the arm. And the arm has a little lock right on the side. It'll latch down. All right? Take our little sticker, and that'll go into the bag of goodies for the client. Oh, correction. I forgot. Since we do have Vega graphics, you get 2 stickers. Yes, yes, yes. Got to show off that Radeon, let me tell you. So, all right. We're going to build our box and bag of documentation and stuff right over here for you. So, okay. Now, once you've got this down, now I will tell you the stock, typically speaking, the stock brackets for the cooling system for this motherboard are wrong. You actually have to remove these in order to install the process, or excuse me, the CPU cooling fan. So we'll take a look and see if that is correct, or if in this particular case, we don't have to. We'll see. All right, now, as you can see, this has actually got the pins that go directly through the motherboard right here, okay? That's what these are. So we are going to have to remove these 2 brackets in order to get these 2 pins on. Being careful that when you remove those brackets, there is a mounting plate on the back. You're going to reuse that mounting plate, so you want to make sure that you don't lose that as you're going here. The other thing you want to be very careful of, and I'm going to get a close-up on the camera over here, this fan has got a pre-layer. Everybody see that? I can't tell if you can see that or not. Now, this is the thermal paste. Now, it's already on here. It's kind of like a sticker. But if you don't damage this, you can actually just use this without having to add any extra thermal paste over here. Typically, if I'm in a gaming scenario, gaming situation, I'm going to scrape this off and put a really good thermal paste down there. But for an office use, this is going to be just fine. So we're not going to worry about that. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pull off those brackets real quick. While I'm doing this, folks, I tell you, we are filming with a new set of lights on the studio here. We're also filming, you'll notice that the hum is gone. That was one of the big things that I was trying to get rid of with the new lights. We're also filming on a new camera. So if any of you have any advice as far as camera angles or lighting scenarios or anything else, in fact, just feedback in general, I very much welcome that. And I love to hear it. So if you have anything at all you want to bring up to me or suggest, I am more than happy to willing to listen. Heck, I'll even give you credit for it. Got my word on that. So, all right, you'll notice the brackets are now off, and this bracket mounting plate is actually poking up through the bottom, and I'm holding it in place with my other finger, okay? So, what we're going to do, you'll take the CPU fan, all right? And this, as you see, it's going to mount straight down on there. Now, you really want to try to get this in the first swoop. Now, I'm going to lay this down flat on the plastic. Now, you see how that pushes through there? That's going to make things a whole lot easier if you're dealing with a flat surface, okay? So, we're going to take this. Once again, don't scratch the surface. We're going to take this and we're going to set the screws straight down on, there we go, right down on the screw holes where they're going to go into. Take your screwdriver. Get a couple of small screws in on each one of them. Just get a couple threads to make sure you're seated all the way. All right. Now, once they're all in, take them down a couple more. I usually go on a cross pattern. And now, you cannot over-tighten these. When these screws hit the bottom, they will stop. See, that stopped. We're going to check and make sure. That stopped. That stopped. That stopped, and that stopped. All right. So now your CPU mounted, or excuse me, your CPU fan is going to actually have a port on the motherboard. It's actually labeled on this, which makes it nice and easy. Right here in the corner that says CPU fan. As you see, you cannot plug it in wrong because there's a notch here that lines up with this notch. So now what I usually will do in this particular case is I will put one coil in this just so you can control wild wiring, and you'll understand why as we go along. Plug that in right there. All right, so we now successfully have our CPU mounted. Now, the next step we're going to go ahead and do to prepare the motherboard is we're going to mount the RAM. All right, so we're going to take that. Now these little brackets, I've got a box full of these. I highly suggest holding on to them if you're going to be doing this, because you never know when you're going to need this. Different types of cooling systems will use different brackets and different ways to mount to the motherboard. So I typically hang on to these. Don't lose them. You may come in handy someday in the future. So, all right, we're going to get over here to our RAM. Now the RAM that I used here, believe it or not, was actually suggested by the manufacturer. It's one of the 2 or 3 suggested brands. This system was built on a very cost-effective budget, was what we were looking for, and yet we were still able to get some very high-quality products into this. We wanted to make sure that it's going to last for a very long time for the client. Now, when installing RAM, now once again, I know this is old news for a lot of you guys, but I wanted to tell. So, you'll notice there's a notch in the RAM, and that the notch is off-centered, okay? Now, if you look at the motherboard and look at the socket, you'll see the same thing. The notch is off-centered. That's how you know the direction of the RAM. They will always go in that way because the notch has to line up. Now, you want to slide in. Now, oh, one other thing I'll show you. This side has got the latches, okay? You want to slide in the other end first, okay? So it goes into this end. All right? Just like that, all right? And seat both sides to make sure it's tight. Now, we do the same thing with the second set of RAM. Once again, verifying before you press her in that the notch is lining up with the notch and that you are in the second one, not right next to it. You want to be in the next one. Stay in the same channel. So this is lanes 1 and 3, okay? Line up on that side. Line up on this side, where you're straight down, click, click. All right, hear that? Everything's clicked in and nice and secure. Okay, so the motherboard, for the most part, is now prepared and ready for the case. So we're going to go ahead and clean up our work area. Now, that's another thing, guys. Try to keep yourself a nice, tidy work area, because if you do, you'll save yourself a lot of headaches also. So clean your area up as you go. It'll help you if you're trying to locate it. Heaven forbid you drop a screw, and you will. You want to keep your work area nice and clean. All right, so motherboard is now ready. We're going to set the motherboard aside. All right, at this point, we're going to go ahead and bring up the case. Okay, folks, so as you can see, we have cracked the thermal case out here. This Thermaltech case is very, very nice. It's not very heavy, which is good, but it is heavy enough to know that you do have some quality here. You're not buying one of those cheap $20 cases off Amazon. The other thing, one thing I really like about this, it's got a magnetized dust shield for the intakes on the air here. So when you're pulling and blowing out air, you don't want to pull in a bunch of dirt and dust into your computer. Over time, it will cause buildup. When it gets buildup, you get heat, you get failure. So you want to make sure that you keep it nice and clean. So, all right, so what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and start by pulling the case top and the sides off here. Don't lose your little screws. All right. Now, one thing I want to show you guys, the reason we didn't actually necessarily have to pull the top off. I like it so you can get down in there and get the wiring stuff. But one thing that you can do with these particular cases is if you're going to run either extra fans or a liquid cooling system, these have actually got rails at the top here that are removable, and you can actually use these in order to install a radiator up here if you're going to use a liquid cooling system, or multiple fans to pull air out. You're going to be pulling most of your air in through this large front fan here, and I'll see if I can get the camera to at least get a shot of that. It's actually in there very well. So, but if you can see it, it is a very large fan, and it's pulling in air constantly at a high velocity, so it'll keep your system nice and cool. So, all right, let's go ahead and pull out our bag of goodies that comes with every single case you ever get. By the way, if you get into this, you will end up with, you hardly ever use everything in this bag, so you will end up with quite the collection of stuff as you go. So, all right. All right, so in this case, these are going to be the slide rails for the hard drives. We'll get to that later. These are the miscellaneous screws, and these are to mount to the motherboard now, or excuse me, to the case. We'll get there in just a second. Now, this has got little risers that are actually built onto the case, and I'm going to see if I can get the camera to get that. Now, these little risers are where the motherboard is actually going to sit on. If you look on the motherboard, there are small holes in very specific places. They will line up with these riser holes. All right? So, all right, you also get a whole bunch of these little tiny zip ties, which will come in handy later. Cable management. Cable management's always a good thing. All right. And some more miscellaneous clips, which we will get to, and of course the case. Once again, we'll never look at the instructions. Goes in the bag. Always goes in the bag. All right, so the first thing I like to always do, remember we were talking about the I/O shield, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to pull this, and we're going to mount the I/O shield. Now, the I/O shield mounts from the inside of the computer out, okay? And you can always tell because when you're looking at it from the outside, the stenciled letters will be correct. Hey folks, sorry about that little delay there. As it turns out, my side camera just decided to die on me. Second camera this week. I'm having a heck of luck when it comes to cameras. So once again, in the description down here, right under it where you have all of the nice little comments, if you have a suggestion on a good camera that I can get that'll be reliable, not fail, that would be awesome. I'll be looking for that. So we're on to the I/O shield. So the I/O shield goes into the computer from the back inside to the outside, all right? And you want to make sure that it is snapped all the way in like that. It just pushes right in and locks in place, all right? At this point, you'll take your motherboard. Now, in this particular case, with this case, we've actually got all of the indentations are already risen up here. So you won't have to use any of the additional little risers that we have in here. But in most cases, on most motherboards that you're going to get, they're not going to have that. What you're going to get, it's going to be flat, and you're going to have to install them wherever the particular holes are so that it matches up. So in this case, now, by the way, this is why I took the top off the case. Now you get to take a look at that. All right, so we're going to go ahead and mount this in, and we're going to make sure that all of our little holes are indeed matching up with all of our pins. All right, that's looking good. That's looking good. Got to match up there. All right, so we had one hole that did not match up. Now, for all I can't see, there's a hole right here. So what we're going to do is we're going to take one of our little risers and the bag of screws that you do not want to lose. All right, and we're going to screw that little riser right down into that little hole. Once again, guys, I'm sorry if you can't see this up close. Lost that camera. I'll do my best to get another one for you here shortly. So, all right, so this is all the way flush. You want to make sure that it's flush against the bottom so you don't put any stress on the board. All right, so once again, and I'll try to do this so the camera can see what we got going here. You're going to take this and you're going to mount it in there, making sure that all of your ports externally line up correctly and go through and that your holes are all lined up. And we got a good line up there. Got a good line up there, that's good, and there. All right, at this point, all of our holes are lined up. So, in this bag, you're going to see several different screws that you're going to use. And I'd love to get a close-up on this because there are actually several different types of screws, guys. But in this particular case, there's one type of screw that fits the threads for this particular motherboard. So, you can't really put it in wrong. Don't over-tighten, that's the key. So wherever the holes are that have lined up when you put the motherboard in, you're going to take the screws and you're going to secure it to the board. And in this particular case, these are using a coarse grain screw. Once again, I'm trying to show the camera here. But it's one of the coarse grain screws. When you open it up, there's going to be fine grains, there's going to be coarse grains, and then there's going to be really coarse ones that you would use on a fan if you were adding an external fan, or excuse me, another internal fan or a cooling system to it. So you're not going to use those obviously to secure the motherboard though. So, all right, so we'll go ahead and get these cranked down. All right. And you should have 6 of these on most motherboards. Let's see what we got here. Here's 2. Some of them will have up to 8, I've seen. And some server boards have even more than that. So don't be surprised if you end up with more than that. All right. By the way, when I was talking earlier about the need for quality tools when doing these projects, here's an example. Magnetic screwdrivers, absolutely 100% necessary for jobs like this. You will save yourself so many headaches trying to find a screw that you just drop down into the client. So yeah, magnetic screwdrivers for the win. All right. There we go. And one more typically, yep, right there in the corner. Okay. All right. Now, the way this case is, it's kind of interesting. Now, you know, most computer cases, when you see them, the hard drives will actually mount in cage bays that are, they're going to be vertical, so up and down. This one has two, except they're sideways and mounted to the side of the other panel. Now, I'm going to crack it open here and show you in a second. It's a little confusing until you kind of see what we're talking about. So, we're going to bring this back around here, and I'm going to go ahead and pull off this panel. All right. All right, so as you can see, these are for the SATA, or excuse me, the SSD drives. You see they're smaller drives, and they are actually, you can move them around in the system based on where your cabling is. So if you're going to bring a cable up through here, obviously you want your drive sitting right in front of it. So it is a little bit mobile. You can change that around a little bit. In this particular case, it looks like this one was actually missing one of the screws. It's probably down there in the case, but if not, we can substitute one of the coarse grain screws from the top. So that's what we're going to go ahead and do. You know what? In fact, since we're here, we'll use this as our mounting plate. So, all right. So we're going to go ahead and get the hard drives mounted at this point. All right. So we'll mount the SSD drive first, since we're in this area. We'll go ahead and get that taken care of. So we're going to put the SSD drive over there. I like to keep it up here at the front. That way, it's the shortest distance. So you can see. Your drive is going to mount here, all right, well, your solid-state drive. Your other hard drive will actually mount in a different location. We'll get to that shortly. But you're going to be running a cable from here over to one of your SATA ports right here. So the shortest distance is always the best. It's certainly easier for cabling. You don't want to have to route over the top of anything because then it's a mesh. You've got to come around and make a corner. So keep the distances as short as you can when you're doing this. All right, so here we go. This is our caddy. Here's the drive. Now, as you can see, you've got two holes on the bottom here, two holes here. There are two holes in the bottom of this caddy that line up with it. So, when this goes in, it'll actually line up with those two holes at the bottom, and it will clip and hold the drive with the other two pins at the top. And trust me, these do not go anywhere once they are in place. So, as you can see, that's how the drive fits. Now, these will actually use the smaller threads to secure them to the caddy. There we go. Once again, do not over tighten. These have got little brass grommets in them, and it is very possible to over tighten and spin the brass grommet out. Then you got a whole new series of problems. So you don't want that. All right, so there we go. So that drive is now mounted. All right, ready to go. So then it locks back into here. And as you can see, little feet go down into this notch. And then at the top, if you can see it, there are holes all along this where you can line it. We're going to line it up right with that first hole right there. Okay? And since this is one of them that we were talking about that was missing one of the screws that surely I will probably find as I go digging around in this case, it's probably in here somewhere. However, we can use just one of the standard coarse grains. That will be just fine. It will work fine. So, all right, there we go. That'll be the one. And there we go. Okay, first hard drive is now mounted. All right. Now, one thing I was going to tell you that there are screw holes on the sides here to mount in here also, which I will secure before the system build is complete. This was just to show you how this drive mounts, because I'll probably be pulling this back out to get cable routing done and everything else, but this is how this particular drive mounts, okay? All right, so, hey folks, so just to let you know, I found the other screw. As it turns out, it had actually come out of the drive and it slid up where the fan is, so I had to pull the front of the case off. But it gives me a very cool opportunity to show you exactly how big that fan is. And this giant fan is going to be pulling in cold air across this whole system. So this is one of the reasons I love this case so much. Nice and small and compact, and yet lots of cooling. So cooling is good. All right, so we're going to go ahead and put this back together. And we'll be right back with you. Okay, folks, back with you. So I've gone ahead and I've pulled that drive out again, and since I had to pull it out anyway, I went ahead and inserted the side screws so that now the drive is completely secure in here. Here is the phantom missing screw that was flying around in the system, so we found that. So we're going to go ahead and remount this. Then we're going to secure this down to right there. That's where we like it. Now, for the 4 terabyte drive, okay, for the standard hard drive, mechanical. A little hard to see this, why I kind of wish my other camera hadn't died on me. However, if you look right here, you've got 3 sideways bays, okay? So these have got drive caddies that pull out right here. And this is what your hard drive actually mounts to, all right? So what we're going to do is we're going to get our hard drive. Kind of funny, I was thinking about that. The irony is, my studio sectional, you probably can tell by the way it looks. This centerpiece, though, I forgot to secure down one of the feet. So as I was looking over it, you probably noticed the whole thing pushed forward. I almost promised to not fall on my face someday doing that. So, all right. So here we go, the hard drive, the static bag, all right. Now, hard drives have come a long way. It used to be that you couldn't even touch these things without having to have full set anti-static stuff on. As long as you don't drop it, you're probably in pretty good shape. So, this is also a serial ATA drive, all right? So what we're going to do is we're going to, in the caddy, all right, you'll notice you have the 2 prongs where you pull this out. There are, and once again you can't see because of the wonderful thing, little plastic feet that will actually insert into the holes on the side of the drives, okay? So, the only thing to remember when doing this is you're going to want the drive facing inward so that you can actually plug into it. That's kind of one of the big things. Can't connect to it, doesn't do you any good, does it? All right. There we go. All right, so we got the drive in the caddy, all right? And once again, just like on the other one, there are a couple of screw holes at the bottom, all right? Now the hard drives use a coarse screw. So you're going to want to look for the coarse ones. And before this video goes up, I will actually try to find close-up pictures of some of these screws so you can see the different kinds that there are here. There are several different kinds of screws. But the coarse screws are what you're going to use on the drive. All right. That one down. And get this one down. There we go. Okay, now the drive is secured to the caddy. Okay? Now, you're going to come into the system. I'm going to try to do this on camera without shoving my table out again. All right, and it's going to slide directly into the drive bay that you took it out of before. Now, you'll hear it click into place. All right? Now, you can secure this drive right here with a screw, which I absolutely will because this client will be shipped. But the truth is, this is clicked into place. It's not going to go anywhere just sitting on your desk. So, I am going to throw in that screw, though, while I'm doing this part, so when it ships, the drive isn't flip-flopping around, because that will absolutely happen occasionally. If you've shipped from UPS or FedEx or anything like that, you know exactly how that is. So, all right. There we go. And we're going to secure that drive right there. All right. Let's see. There we go. All right. So it's not going to go anywhere now. All right. Now, the next step, power supply. Now, for this particular power supply, I picked what's called a power spec 650. Now, the reason I went with this particular power supply, this power supply is modular. which means that you only have to plug in the plugs that you need, and that makes cable management a lot easier. If you go with a standard power supply that isn't modular, you've got a pigtail coming off with tons of cabling going everywhere, and that makes cable management a little more on the difficult side. So this one will alleviate some of that problem for you. By the way, another good rule of thumb, folks, when you're building a client, no matter where you get your parts, Newegg, Amazon, Micro Center, Fry's, whatever, keep all of your boxes and hardware until you're 100% certain. It's a low failure rate, but it is a possibility, and you don't want to have to hunt your stuff out. So when you're building the clients, I've got all my boxes lined up down here. This is what I do, keep them in one place so it's easy to get to. So, all right, so here we go. Power. Like we're going to use that, we're going to set that right on over there. So here's the power supply itself. Now you'll notice that the only wires that are actually coming out of the power supply at this point are the connection to the motherboard. That's it. But you've got a lot of little plugs right back here. This is what's going to make things a whole lot easier, I'll tell you. So, all right. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and mount the power supply. Before I do that though, I will show you, on the back here, you're going to see the cables where you plug these in there. They are modular. So if you look at the cables, this is for a PCI Express, and it's actually labeled on the back here, and it's red, so it's color-coded. This is the one you would go if you were going to any sort of a device that required external power. Perhaps, say, a high-end video card. That's your primary use for your PCI Express. So we're not actually going to be using it because we don't have an external video card hooked up into this, so this will go into the bag. All right? I always give them their cables. Now, in the other cabling, there's going to be two of them that you're going to pay particular attention to. One of them is going to be a 4-prong that actually connects to the motherboard. And the other one is going to be, which is going to be this one. The other one is going to be the power connectors you're going to use to connect all of your peripherals. So both of your hard drives and any other peripheral you decide to install in this. We don't have a CD-ROM or anything going in this because pretty much everything these days is on thumb drive or online, so you don't need one. It can be added, sort of. Interesting thing about this case, they put the CD-ROM header in here. However, you couldn't have one because it'd have to go through the solid front. So yeah, that's probably not going to work. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get the power supply mounted, and I'll be back with you in just a second. Okay, folks, so I've turned the computer over on its side to show you how to mount this power supply. Now, most power supplies are pretty standard. Put them in place, screw them down. You can't really mess up with it because there's only 4 screws and they only go in one pattern. In this case, though, with this particular case, you have to pull the bottom of the case off to access the bay where the power supply is going to go. So we're going to pull the bottom of the case off. Now, you'll see here you've got 4 screws on here. All right, these 2 are at the corners and these 2 are offset. Now, those are the ones you have to watch because if you look at the back of the case, you will actually be able to see that 2 of them are on the corner and 2 of them are offset. So that's how your power supply is going to insert. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and insert the power supply. So what we're going to do is go ahead and mount the power supply now. So, all right, going to go into place. And the holes. Now, one thing you're going to want to be sure of, this fan, you'll see how it is down. It's pointing down. Other than the holes mounting, this fan will tell you which direction the power supply goes in. So air is being pulled all the time to cool the power supply off. That's important. All right, so what we're going to do is here, power cord. Will also go in the bag for the client. And those are the screws for the power supply. Although I will tell you that in that same bag that the motherboard came in, there are also 4 other screws that would work with it as well. They're very universal. So. All right. Get our screws out here. And we're going to get the power supply secured in here. Like I said, there's only one way that it goes. If you have it in upside down, the holes won't line up. And if you don't see the fan, you know you're going the wrong way. Otherwise, you'd be pulling hot air right onto your processor. And yeah, bad things happen then when you force hot air onto a hot component with no cooling. Bad things tend to happen. All right. There we go, and one more. Okay, now that we have the power supply fully mounted, we're going to go back to, we've got to do a little bit of cable management here, so we're going to show you what we're going to do. All right, so we're going to be bringing a couple of wires up to the motherboard, but we don't want to have all this exposed wiring back here, so we want to make sure that it stays concealed back here. And you've got plenty of room to do that. So, and this is the thing I love about this case, is it'll actually give you some room to do it. So, let's go ahead and get the main motherboard connection pins connected up here for the power to the motherboard. All right, I'm going to turn this so that you guys can see this. This will be a lot easier with my mini camera, I know. So, all right, once again, this only goes in one way, okay? So you're going to take it. Incidentally, you'll notice that this has a removable 4 pins. That's for different kinds of motherboards. Some motherboards do not use all of the existing pins. In this case, it does. All right, there you go. All right, everybody got that? This will actually go back under here. We'll be securing that down here shortly, okay? All right, now, as I mentioned before, you're going to have a 6-pin. It's either a 4 or a 6 depending on the motherboard. This one has to have a 6-pin, okay? This one is going to connect directly to here. Now, this is going to power up, excuse me a second here. And here's your 6-pin connected, okay? Take that off there. Now, as we said on that motherboard, they are all labeled, okay? But it is a standard power supply, so as long as you're going to one of the labeled ones that fits the plug that you've got, it'll connect right up. All right, so once we have the primary power for the motherboard plugged in, the only other cable that was coming out that was already built onto it was the 2 pins for the motherboard now. Some of these will have 6 pins, some of them will have 4 pins. This one in particular has 8 pins. So you've got 2 connectors that actually sit side by side like that, okay? So you're gonna run them up also. Now, you can route these in whichever way you want to. We'll do some cable management here once we're done. But in this case, I'm gonna run this up through the same route we took last time, and I'm going to connect them to the motherboard. All right, once again, I'm gonna show you. So, this one, plug directly in right here. Okay? All right, now. Okay, now next what you're going to need to do is to plug in your peripherals. So your hard drives and CD-ROM or whatever else you have, get their power going to them. So both of these 2 cables actually both have power for that. There are 2 more modular connections on that power supply. We're only going to use one, so we'll give that one back to them. That'll go back to the customer. I'll turn this sideways. Now, given that the hard drives are a distance apart, you can see here's one down here, and you can see one up here, all right? You might be able to use the same power supply to power both of them. It just depends on the length. But as you can see, these are very long cables, so you should be able to get away with just using one here. That'll also help with your cable management. So, we're going to connect back up here. Oh, by the way, I don't know if the camera's going to pick this up, guys, but you can see here, there are 3 plugs here, and they match up to these. You cannot plug them in wrong. There's nowhere you can put them in wrong, or you can't put them in upside down, so just plug them in to any one of those 3 ports. Okay? Now is when you're going to get to do a little bit of cable management here. You're going to decide where you're going to run these 2 cables. Now, in this particular case, I would suggest we'll go ahead and get the hard drive in first so we can see what kind of length we're dealing with. So we're going to get the serial ATA for the hard drive. Once again, you cannot plug these in wrong. They have a little L shape on them. Follow the L shape. You can't put them in backwards or upside down, so don't worry about that. All right, so we're on the end of that cable. And we'll come around. As you can see, that is going to be too short. So we're going to have to use 2 cables. But that's okay. That's fine. So we'll cable manage that one in a second. We're going to grab the other cable. There we go. And we're going to plug it in. Just like that. And then we're going to plug this into this hard drive. And actually, I'll tell you what we're going to do to keep this nice and clean. We're going to use the first one in the chain. Okay? You'll understand why as we start to cable manage this. Now, I will give you a picture of this in a second to show you what it looks like from the top. All right. Like I said, don't worry about getting too clean when you're doing this part. Your cable management will come at the end. So, all right. So, hard drive is connected with power. Hard drive is connected with power. All right, got that right here. So it's all in, nice and secure and ready to go. So the next thing we're going to want to do is let's go ahead and get the serial ATA cables, which are the control cables in for the hard drive. This actually allows them to communicate with the motherboard. Okay? So, and that is going to be in a little bag right here. This came with the motherboard. You get 2 of them in there. Okay? Now they're standard serial ATA cables. You can get them anywhere. Nothing unique about them. The only difference is some of them will have little bent side prongs like this, angles, and some of them will be flat. So in this particular case, there's one of each of these in here, so we'll use them both. All right. So the way your motherboard is labeled, you're going to have serial ATA 0 to 3. Truthfully, it doesn't matter where you plug them in, but I do try to keep it universal. So 0 is always going to be your primary hard drive, which in this case is going to be that little SSD drive. So we're going to plug it into, all right, so we're going to go into 0. All right, we're going to bring it on over. And once again, don't worry too much about cable management at this point. We'll get to it and we'll cable manage it here at the end. All right. And actually, you know what, now that I think about it, I think I'm going to use this other cable here because I like the straight down connector. I want the L connector for the bottom, but I want the straight down for this one. So, here we go. And I will run these under these because they will be cable managed that way. Okay. And there. All right, now, for the hard drive on the bottom, same deal. We're going to go to 1. So, primary hard drive is on 0. Secondary hard drive is on 1. And for routing purposes, okay, there's a couple different ways you can do this. Since the primary hard drive is literally directly below the board, you can route straight down and cable tie right here, and it will look good. And that's actually what I'm going to do. Good. All right. So, all cables are connected. Now, the next thing we're going to do, now this will be a little tough to see since my little camera here decided to die on me. You've got some, these are called header pins. Now, on the front of any one of the cases, you've got power buttons, you've got hard drive LEDs, you've got front side USB, all of that kind of stuff. And that's what these pins are. Now, a lot of this is color coded on the motherboard or it's labeled really well, okay? If you look at it, you'll notice, like, for instance, just to give you an example, this is a USB 3.0, all right? On this motherboard, you actually have a corresponding slot that says USB 3.0. You can't really put it into the wrong place because of the way the pin layouts are. So, as you can see, there's a notch at the top, matched with the notch on the board, straight on in. Just like that, okay? All right, now, same thing with front side USB, which this one does not appear to have, so that's a good thing. This is the fans, big giant fan in the front. Now, there are 3 actual fan ports on this motherboard that you can go to, okay? You've got a CPU system fan over here, you've got a system fan up here, and you've got another system fan on the bottom here. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to run this one off of the system fan 2, system fan 1 up here. Now, this motherboard will also support LEDs. We're not going to be doing anything fancy like that. This is an office machine, so I'm not overly concerned with that. So we're not going to do that. All right, so now you got your system fan plugged in. All right. Next phase, these are your HD audio ports, okay? Now, if you look on your motherboard, you're going to see it's going to be labeled for HD audio. I'll show you right here. You can't really see it with this camera, but I'm going to show you anyway. Now, the cool thing about this particular kind of pin is it's missing one pin. Well, all you have to do is line it up with the pin that's missing on your connector so that you can't really do it wrong. And put the pin down on it. That's definitely the wrong angle. I always prefer to do this from straight above it, but you know, there we go. All right, so that's seated. That's for your front side audio ports, okay? And the last one. Now, these are going to be very difficult to show you on camera, but What you've got here is your reset switch, your power switch, your hard drive LED, and to do these, you have to actually you have to see the motherboard right here. It's actually labeled on here which one these actually fit in. So you can't really put them in the wrong way. Worst case scenario, you can refer to the book on the motherboard and it will tell you a little more clearly, but you can read it right here. So I'm going to go ahead and mount these and then I'll get right back with you. Okay folks, so as you can see, I've got all of the connections in here to control all of the external connections for USB, for audio, for power, LEDs, all that kind of stuff. So it's all connected up now. Now, at this point, you could theoretically go ahead and start the system up, but and for most people, that's probably not a bad idea to go ahead and verify that you got everything plugged in correctly and nothing's in the wrong place. But for me, I've done these for quite a few years, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and do some cable dressing on this. This will take me a little bit, and I'll get right back with you. Okay, folks, so we're here back with you. I've completed the cabling on this. Now, if you want to, cabling is kind of an important thing to me. I like it to not only look good, but cabling does have a practical functionality, which is heat. If you've got cabling everywhere, then you don't have a lot of good heat flow through there. It can be blocked, or your cables can get tangled up in your fans. They can melt, cause all kinds of problems. So on top of just looking like super, super cool, heat is an issue. So definitely monitor and watch your cabling. So I don't know if this camera's going to pick it up. I did get Stumpy here working, so I'm going to try it out again, and we're going to see if Stumpy here will actually record some of what we have going here. So let's see what we got. All right, so if Stumpy's recording, here's what we've got. So we've got all of the cabling is now linear. None of it is hanging over the top of any fans. This should keep everything nice and cool. Now I'll show this camera as well. As you can see, we have no cables dangling out here, nothing hanging. Everything is nicely tucked in. Everything is nicely zip tied away. Everything should stay nice and cool on this system now, and it will be able to survive transport. This is actually going to Colorado, so it'll be able to survive transport up there without having to call and check and see if everything is working. So, all right, I'm going to get the case reassembled. All but probably the side and the top. That way we'll go ahead and fire it up together. We can see what it looks like while we have it on the bench here. So I'll be right back with you. Okay folks, I'm back with you. So we have the computer all set up here. I left the sides off so that you can see everything open. I've connected it up to my old trusty monitor here. And we're going to go ahead and see if it posts up. Now, the little camera gave the ghost up again. So we keep getting like little spurts, but I promise you for the next shoot, this will be working right, so no problems there. All right, so let's go ahead and we're going to fire her up and let's see what we get out of it. Now we should get a nice post screen. There we go. And let's go ahead and go into the BIOS. Make sure that all of our RAM is recognized and all of our devices are recognized. All right, now that we're into the BIOS, we're going to go ahead and we're going to check and make sure that all of our devices are actually here. So we're going to check onto our menu right here, and we can scroll down here and we're going to be able to see that yes, it is indeed seeing our SATA drive as drive 0, and it is seeing our 4 terabyte drive as port 1. So SATA 0 is the SSD, SATA 1 is our 4 terabyte. So now the next step is going to be to go ahead and load Windows onto this machine. Now most versions of Windows 10 these days, like we said before, do come on a USB drive. So it's a very quick process. Generally, with an SSD drive, it usually takes less than 8 to 10 minutes to install Windows. And then once Windows is done, it usually takes quite a while to go ahead and get the latest Windows updates and drivers and such. So you got to count on a little bit of a burn-in time after you build a new computer just to get everything, all the drivers updated and get Windows updated and so on and so forth. And of course, deal with whatever Windows messes up after it updates. We all know about the creators update. So. But at any rate, I'm going to go ahead and get Windows started on this one, and I'll get back with you now. All right, guys, and as you can see, here we are in Windows. Now, we'll do a couple of basic things. Now, most of the time, Windows 10 will already have most of the device drivers, at least the basic device drivers loaded. You can actually go to the device manager, and if you guys would like to, you can leave comments down in the section down here. If you want to know exactly how to load device drivers, how to find them online, how to extract them, how to save them, all of that. I can do a totally separate video for that as one of the do-it-yourself series. Just let me know if that's something you'd be interested in. So I'm going to go ahead and attack these device drivers, and I'll get right back with you. Now, one thing I will let you know, whenever you're dealing with a new system, if the device drivers don't load, now typically the LAN card on these is pretty universal. So Windows 10 will have a driver for that, and then you can use it to pull down your device drivers off the internet. However, if that is not the case, and in fact all of your network drivers show as unknown drivers on your device manager, you can actually use, in this case I'm using a D-Link, a little external USB D-Link Wi-Fi adapter. I'll use it to connect to the network to download all of the other device drivers and go ahead and update Windows. Now, granted, when you're updating Windows, it's probably best to be on a LAN connection because the first few updates are very, very large, but this will get us by for the short term to get the drivers loaded and get everything ready to go. So I'll keep you posted. Okay, folks, so we've got all device drivers loaded. Everything is actually complete. The last one we are working on now is actually the driver for the video card on board. So by default, it always uses the Microsoft generic display adapter, and that's fine for to start, but obviously you want your good drivers on there so you can use both of your outputs for two different monitors and to get advanced graphics. So you definitely want to do that. So what we did is we went directly to AMD's website. We're downloading the latest Catalyst version from them, which will actually install the device drivers and allow you to tweak them quite a bit. So that should be done. That's the largest download that we're doing on this right now, aside from obviously Windows downloads. But that should be done here in a couple minutes, and we'll get right back with you. All right, folks. So as you can see, we've got the computer completely assembled, all the case sides on. It's powered up right now. We have a complete load of Windows, and I am running the last of the Windows updates right now. Once these are done, this computer will be complete. Now, I did run into one little issue. This is running Vega 11 graphics, which are actually integrated onto the processor. As it turns out, you had to actually update the BIOS on this particular motherboard in order for it to allow enough free resources to run the video. So once I got that taken care of, all that was done off camera. It took me about 20 minutes to get everything downloaded. But then everything came up fine and worked perfectly. At some point, I will probably create another video specifically for this motherboard and that processor, in case anybody else ever runs into this problem. But for now, this computer is up and running. It's ready to go. It'll actually get shipped out tomorrow to its new owner, who is ready to play with it. So thank you guys so much for watching.